Welcome to Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. Today's Nerd Stuff is we're going to talk about an article that I found interesting in the May 31st edition of The Economist. The title of the article is Ivy Beleaguered, and it talks about what's going on with the current political climate and colleges, and especially particularly Ivy Leagues. Regardless of your political stance, I thought it brought out some interesting things, and it's worth talking about. So it begins the article talking about some of America's most valuable companies were built by people who came to America as students. And something to consider is a lot of those people who came to America as students, a lot of them decide to stay and become citizens. So people, you'll hear the term brain drain. Brain drain is you're bringing your best and brightest from other countries. They leave that country into your country, and your country is better off because you're getting good talent. You're getting people who are, in creating industries and creating jobs and making life better. And that's one of the valuable things about attracting talent from other countries. One of the things that it goes on talks about is all told, more than half of America's billion-dollar startups were founded by at least one immigrant. A quarter of them had a founder who had arrived in the country as a student. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about all the jobs, all the taxes that were generated from those jobs, all the where America became, the leading edge in certain technologies. Some of that were from these people who came from other countries, started a company, and decided to stay. And regardless, again, about your political feelings about things, the more we do to push people from wanting to come to America, that doesn't improve America. That actually is you're giving other countries an opportunity to get ahead. And one of the things that you have to also consider is when foreign students come to the U.S., they learn and understand the American culture. They learn and understand democracy. We don't do everything perfect, but there's a lot of things that we do right. And often what will happen is they'll make friends, they'll make connections, and even if they don't decide to stay in America, when they go back to their home countries, now we have a connection there. And that's one of the things that people forget about is the more we do as a country to alienate those of other countries, the less likely they want to be our friends, the less likely they want to be our allies, the less likely they're going to work with us. And it's a lot easier to clear up misunderstandings or when things start to escalate with somebody you're on friendly terms with than with somebody who you're not on friendly terms with. And then it goes on to talk about attracting global talent has long been one of America's academia's greatest strengths. The country draws more international students than any other. So think about that. We were drawing more international students than any other country. That was benefiting this country. And again, even the ones that decide not to stay here, even the ones that decide not to become U.S. citizens, they're going back to their home countries. Some of them are getting in government. Some of them are getting in business. And wouldn't you want to have more connections, more business connections with people in other countries, more connections with people who are rising in government of other countries? Why wouldn't we want to create situations where we've got more people who want to work with us? Why are we trying so hard to push people away? Then it goes on to talk about how clicks on American courses are now at the lowest level since the pandemic. So you've got less and less people now that even want to come here. And there's some financial stakes at play. The financial stakes are high in the 2023-2024 academic year. Foreign students added $43.8 billion to American economy. So think about that. That's $43.4 billion that was brought into the economy, creating jobs, and how many jobs were created from those jobs. So that's something you really need to think about. Then it kind of goes on to talk about, at the end, the heaviest cost to America will be in talent. Around 3/4 of international PhD students say they intend to stay in America after graduating. Blocking the next generation of students would succeed in punishing the Ivies, but over time, it's America's edge in science, business, and innovation that will suffer. So again, regardless of your political leanings, regardless of what you think is going on with the universities in America, if you're trying to punish and push away, either directly or indirectly, international students from coming here, in the long term, that hurts the United States. That's going to mean less PhD students that are staying. That's going to be less innovation. That's going to be less connections. And it's one of those things that what made America so great, one of the many things that have made America so great, is our innovation. We wouldn't be the country we were today. Actually, no, and I should have said we wouldn't be the country we are today, but I think that a lot of people agree that the country we were might have been better than the country that we currently are, given the geopolitical climate and everything that's going on. I would say that what made us so great is we brought in people. We embraced people. We were that melting pot. We were that city on the hill. And I think a case can be made where we're pushing that away. And, this is something that we all need to take a look at and not just react on emotions and talking points and 30-second sound bites. Take time to read articles. Take time to think about the long-term implications. And, take times to think about stuff where regardless if you like somebody's leanings and what they say, you do have the right to do freedom of speech. You do have the freedom to assemble. You do have the freedom of speech. So whether I like what you say or not, you do have that freedom to say what you want to say. Now there is not a freedom from consequence. So there is consequences if you cross that line. There is a consequence if you yell fire in a crowded movie theater. There is a consequence if you are advocating speech for violence. And none of this is to say, you should be supporting people that are advocating speech for violence. And I think what happens is people often misunderstand intentionally or unintentionally if something they disagree with, well, they're advocating violence or they're advocating this. No, it's just a different point of view. They're saying, hey, all lives are important. They're saying in an international setting, we want to protect as many people as we can. A life is a life. If you believe life is sacred, then you should be advocating for peace. You should be advocating for protecting as many people as you can. And I think what happens is the more that we're pushing other people away, the more that we become isolationists, the more we honestly just upset and frustrate and piss off our allies, the less they're going to help us, the less they're going to want to work with us. If you believe in, quote, America first, if you believe in, that, or those people who say that they're MAGA, think long term. How does it make America great again? How are you America first if you're advocating and pushing things that in the long run will hurt America? And again, you can agree, you can disagree. And this is just something where I read the article. I thought it was interesting. Yes, this is a channel about whiskey, games, and nerd stuff. But anybody who watches any of these videos, I come across these articles, I read them. And you would be surprised at my personal political leanings and what I feel personally. And that's not something I generally talk about. But these are articles that I'll read them. I could see both points. I think there's some good dialogue that needs to be had. And this is one of those things I do think it's worth talking about. Really appreciate everybody, taking the time to watch this. I would say read this article and similar articles. Would love to hear what people's comments and thoughts are on this particular issue. And all I ask is you keep it respectful. If you want to make a point, make a point. Just don't troll. If you can handle that. But again, I do appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this. And until next time, everybody, cheers.